Welcome everyone, my name is Susan Anderson. I am the Administrative Coordinator for the Sustainable Business Council. We're here tonight on the eve of SBC's 10th anniversary, and we want to thank you for joining us for that event. SBC's kickoff was actually on February 28th in 2002, and I want to thank, do I have any of the founders in the audience? Raise your hand if you're here. Oh, Evelyn's way up in the back, sure enough. So Evelyn Widholm and Dave Harmon, Chuck Irestone, Ron Mueller, Jim Parker, Jeff Smith, Pete Talbot, and myself were the organizing committee for the SBC some 11 years ago. We got together at a conference in 2000 and decided we needed a sustainable business organization in Missoula. And after about a year of doing bylaws and surveying the community and setting up a kickoff event, we had our first lecture. And we've been doing lectures every year since then, so 10 years worth of lectures. We're on our 4th year in our Buy Local campaign. We're on our 4th year in our workshop and sustainable evaluation series, Strive Towards Sustainability. And we're on our 3rd year with Garden City Local Fest. We're also involved in a whole bunch of other activities, but those are kind of the biggies. Without our founders and a huge number of volunteers over the years, we would not have been able to get this far. And we really want to thank all those folks. And right now, I'd like all the board members in the room, if they would, to raise their hands. I know I have a few. We've got Ryan Weiser, Brandy, Susie, Lisa, Jennifer, Heather, sorry. Jennifer's not here tonight. Blake is in the front. Did I miss anybody? So if you guys have questions about the Sustainable Business Council, please stop one of these folks afterwards. They'd love to chat with you. That's one of their jobs as a board member. And finally, I'd like to introduce Drew Little, our current program coordinator. She has a lot to do with this event actually happening this year, and we're real excited about what's going on. Unfortunately, we're also going to be saying goodbye to Drew at the end of March, so anybody who wants to grab a little bit of her knowledge, tonight would be a great time to talk to her as well. I want to take a few minutes to thank our sponsors, Energetics, which has a table out in the hall. You can chat with them afterwards. Montana Rail Link, Summit Beverage, and Cherry Creek Radio all helped us put on this event this year. But I'd like to give an even bigger thanks to the School of Business. They have co-hosted this annual lecture with us for the last 2 years, allowing us to bring in a nationally known speaker for the last couple of years. They've been helping us with financial support for various lectures and events for about 4 years, and we really appreciate the partnership. We couldn't have done some of the things we've been doing without them, and it's really great to be able to bring speakers in that we share then. Cherie today was in with a couple different business classes. Last night we had her in a Q&A with the local area brewers, so we get to affect both the business community and the student groups that come through here. And now this is the forum for the public, and we're really glad you're all here with us tonight. With that, I want to give you a brief introduction to our next speaker. Mike Harrington is the Associate Dean and an Associate Professor here at the University in the School of Business. He is a native of Montana and actually came up through the business ranks, so he has lots of business experience to give to the school and to give to the community here. He was a graduate of Loyola Sacred Heart. I didn't realize that until I went out to grab your bio today. Here in Missoula, so he actually grew up in Missoula. And in 1986, he graduated from the School of Business here and then went on to the law school and got a law degree in 1990. From there, he went into industry. And he worked for several years with Davis Wright Tremaine in Seattle, a law firm over there. Then he worked for Montana Power and Touch America, and finally came back to the law school to work, and it sounds like the School of Business stole him from over there. So, how many years have you been here now, Mike?
8 years.
8 years, okay. So Mike's been kind of a key instrumental part of the School of Business's last 8 years and their move into sustainability, because I'd really say it's been the last 5 or 6 years that they've really started to concentrate on that and try and put it into the curriculum in a serious level. We really appreciate everything that they do for us and for moving sustainability forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike and let him give you an overview of SOVA and an introduction to the speaker.
Thanks very much, Susan. Well, thank you very much, Susan, for the great introduction. I'm moved. Although anytime anybody's introducing me, if I have a chance to look it over, I strike out the Montana Power Touch America part. It was a great company, and it still rips my heart out thinking about what happened over there in beautiful Butte. But as Susan said, my name's Mike Harrington. I'm the Associate Dean here at the Business School, and we're really grateful for tonight's speaker coming in to give this lecture presentation and to visit with our students. They always have their ears perk up and they pay attention when we have people from industry and the real world come and visit with them and share insights and help them gain knowledge. So really, Cherie, we appreciate everything that you did for our students. We're looking forward to your lecture tonight. Congratulations to Evelyn and Susan and all the board members and any other founders who are here for 10 years of success. And it's really our pleasure to help co-host tonight's lecture series. We really find value in bringing in folks such as tonight's guest lecturer. And I know nobody came here to listen to me speak, so I'm going to jump right in to introducing Ms. Cherie Chastain, who's the Sustainability Coordinator for Sierra Nevada Brewing Company in Chico, California. Cherie's been with the company for about 5 years, and she's generally responsible for educating employees, peers, and consumers on environmental issues and programs, for maintaining current policies and procedures, and working on new project development and deployment. Among her many tasks, Cherie is specifically responsible for overseeing Sierra Nevada's greenhouse gas inventory, for monitoring energy use, conservation, and generation, for managing waste avoidance, recycling, and composting efforts, for researching and implementing alternative fuel options, and for developing efforts toward water conservation and reuse. Cherie has a bachelor's degree in physical geography from Cal State Sacramento and a master's degree in environmental geography from Cal State Chico. So please join me in giving a nice round of applause and welcoming Ms. Cherie Chastain.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here, and I really want to especially thank the Business Council and the university for hosting me here. I really enjoy doing these types of things, and I get passionate about what we do, and it's always exciting for me to be able to share what we do at Sierra Nevada with anybody who's willing to listen to me. So thank you all for coming. Again, my name is Cherie Chastain. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator at Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. My job was clearly outlined to you, but essentially it's kind of threefold, just to give you an idea of where I come from at the brewery. One of my main tasks is maintaining existing pieces that are put in place, so I monitor the fuel cells, the solar panels, energy. I run the recycling and composting, the biodiesel machine. I do our greenhouse gas inventory, kind of maintaining everything that's already in place. And then a second component is new technology, looking for the next new cool thing that we could install, or the next efficiency piece that would make us a little more efficient, or just generally new technology that's being developed. And then the third component is education, which involves kind of everybody in our supply chain, our consumers, number one. So I spend a lot of time with marketing, with events and sponsorships, which I'm actually going to talk about marketing at the end a little bit. But really educating our employees is the biggest piece of our education program. Without our employee participation, we would not have the program that we do today. So I rely on our employees, and I spend a lot of time educating them and getting them involved in what we're doing. So with that, I will give you a little bit of history about Sierra Nevada. We were founded in 1980 in Chico, California. We're in Northern California, 100 miles north of Sacramento. We are also a rural community, and from what I've been told and what I've seen, it's actually fairly similar to Missoula. A small community, there's about 85,000 people in Chico, university town, surrounded by mountains, very outdoorsy, very similar. So I'm actually excited to spend a little more time in Missoula and really do some exploring here. But Sierra Nevada was essentially founded in a basement. This was our first real brewery. Very nice, as you can see. It was pieced together in 1980 using recycled dairy equipment. Ken Grossman, the owner of the company, who is currently still the owner of the company, found an old soda bottling line. He took classes at the local community college in order to actually weld all of this equipment together and utilize the welding machinery that was there at the community college. Ken Grossman himself is a very environmentally conscious person. He understands environmental issues. He understands how humans impact those environmental systems that we rely on. And he chose from the get-go to run his business with the environment at the forefront of decision making. Now, that has some inherent environmental and economic benefits to it. As a small business getting started, you do not have the capital to simply waste it on electricity or waste it on water or waste it on packaging. You have to be very frugal with your resources as you get started, which Ken was. Packaging was returned, bottles were returned. He scrounged together everything that he could to build the company. We are now the second largest craft brewer in the country. We are the sixth largest brewer overall. We are still in Chico, California, and at this point we still only have one manufacturing facility. We will, in the next couple of years, have another manufacturing facility in North Carolina. Just purchased property out there about a month ago, actually, so it's still very new. It'll be another couple of years before we actually have any production out on the East Coast. So we still have one facility, and we're privately held, which puts us in a very different position than a lot of businesses. Luckily and thankfully for me, as somebody with my passions and my interests, I get to report directly to Ken. And I do not have to do a lot of convincing on why we need to address our environmental footprint. He gets it, he drives it, and I spend most of my time keeping up with him. So I'm very lucky to work for the company that I do and the person that I work for. Sierra Nevada has been recognized on a number of occasions for our environmental and sustainability program. We've been recognized statewide, nationally, locally, for a number of different things, for recycling, for composting, for energy, for overall general sustainable plant practices. I will be the first person to tell you, and I know that Ken backs me up on this, that we are not 100% sustainable. And in my opinion, I don't think that a 100% sustainable business exists. There's always going to be more to do, a corner to turn, another issue to address. There's always going to be more to work on, which is great job security for me, but it also keeps things exciting and never lets us get stagnant. So we try to impress that upon our employees, is never just feel comfortable with what we're doing, challenge it, and find the next great thing that we could be doing. So how do we define sustainability? At Sierra Nevada, we've spent a lot of time discussing sustainability. It's one of our core values, and it took a pretty serious exercise to actually get management to sit down and talk about sustainability and what it means to our organization, what it means to Sierra Nevada, and we essentially came up with the same definition that's most widely accepted. Now, my master's thesis centered around sustainability and the concept of sustainability, what it is, what are people doing, and the one definitive thing I can tell you is that everybody defines it differently. Everybody has their own definition. This is the most commonly accepted definition of sustainability, and this is how we tend to approach it at the brewery. There's the obvious environmental implications of having a sustainability program and the environmental focus, which is the lens that I tend to look at all of this through, is from the environmental perspective. However, you can't discount the social piece. We have to make sure that our employees are healthy, that they can provide for their families, that they have health care, that they can afford their mortgages. We have to also make sure that our community is healthy and vibrant. Without a healthy community, our business would not be what it is today. And that's not just the local Chico community, that's our global community. Making sure, trying to instill social justice and social equity across the board. But we obviously want to sell beer, so we have to have a really strong economic model. And one of the ways that I like to think of all of this relating together, one of the ways that makes sense to me, and hopefully it makes sense to you guys. So as the environment, let's just pretend here, hypothetical, the environment starts to fail, okay? We get droughts in places, we get floods in other places, we have pests invading territories that maybe they weren't necessarily invading before. You have all sorts of different environmental issues that are impacting your lifestyle because the environment is unhealthy. For us as a brewer, that impacts the raw materials that we absolutely rely on to make our product. If we do not have good hops and good barley, we do not have good beer. Okay, so we rely on this natural environment to provide the products to make our beer. If we can't afford the hops and the barley to make our product, that jeopardizes our economic model. And in order to stabilize our economic business model, we then have to start laying people off, cutting costs, cutting corners. Employees lose their jobs, they can't afford their mortgages, they can't provide for their families, they don't have health care. And we've seen this happen over the last couple of years. So sustainability is not one specific area, it's all three of these working together cohesively, completely intertwined and commingled. You can't just look at things from an environmental perspective. You have to account for the economic aspects and the social aspects. You can't just approach a problem from an economic perspective alone. You have to consider the environmental implications or the social implications of that action. So that's how we tend to think of things at the brewery and how we like to approach a problem or a proposed solution, is look at all three of these areas combined. So how do we do that? Well, first is the zero waste goal, which I'm actually going to spend some time talking about. But generally, that just means to close the loop. So we take something that's leaving our process and recycle it back in. If we can't recycle it back into our process, we try and find somebody else within the community who can use that byproduct that they can use within their process. So in order to do this, you have to first audit. You have to stop and take stock of what's going on in your operation, in your facility. Do an energy audit, do a water audit, do a motor audit, do a trash audit, do some kind of audit. Look at your invoices, bare minimum. Then you work on tracking. So once you've done an audit, you can put the stake in the ground, and then you can start tracking that on a daily, a weekly, a monthly, a yearly basis. Some sort of tracking to let you know whether or not you're on the right track or where areas lie that you could be working on to improve. And in this phase is when you can look for new technologies to help you decrease or increase depending on whichever metric you're looking at. Look for new technologies that'll improve your efficiencies, that'll bring you back in a line where you're more comfortable. And I cannot stress the importance of education. Educating your stakeholders, educating your employees, educating anybody who's involved in your organization on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how they are expected to contribute or participate in what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to go through those three things, the auditing, the tracking, and the education first, and just kind of touch on those, give a little more detail specific. And then I'm going to focus on the areas that I feel are applicable to any business or organization, and I'll give some of the highlights of what Sierra Nevada is doing. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about marketing, and then we'll open it up for questions and hopefully have some good discussions going on. So first of all, our zero waste goal. there's two main drivers behind the zero waste goal, and I know I just talked about 3 facets of sustainability, but the main drivers: improve environmental health and save money. Both of those have peripheral social benefits to them. By improving your environmental health, you improve your air quality, your water quality, your natural resource pool. You improve your general physical health. We need healthy air, we need clean water, we need healthy food, good beer. Saving money also has social benefits to it. If a business or an organization is able to save money, they can divert that money into more things like improved health care or higher wages. So there are social benefits to both of those pieces, which is why it's so important to look at these things from all aspects. If you look at something strictly from the environmental side of things, you're going to lose sight of your social or your economic benefits that you would otherwise realize. Now, at Sierra Nevada, I've really been trying to stress that zero waste is not just the solid stuff that we throw in the trash or recycling bin, okay? It's not just the stuff that's going to landfill. We waste a lot of things. We waste time, we waste water, we waste energy, we waste packaging. Heaven forbid we waste beer. Wasting these things is unsustainable. You cannot be wasteful and expect to be sustainable. It's just not going to happen. So I'm trying to get employees to realize that there are wastes going on in these areas, and these are just the big ticket ones at Sierra Nevada that I've identified. There's a lot of work to be done to be less wasteful in those areas, and trying to get employees to think bigger picture, think outside the box on those things. So auditing, do audits. This is me and my assistant, Mandy. We do trash audits, like literally in the trash can, sorting and weighing materials to find out what's going in the trash, how we can keep that out of the trash. We've done water audits, we've done light audits, we've done motor audits, we've done all different kinds of audits on all of our process, but you have to stop and audit. There's a lot of resources out there for you. There's a lot of assessment tools and check sheets and templates that you can use. I'm sure there's a lot of local organizations that you could take advantage of to help you provide audits for your organization or your business. I know in Chico, the university is a big resource for that. A lot of the business students are able to provide some sustainability specific audits for businesses at no cost. Utilities, I've worked with our water utility to provide water audits. I've worked with our electricity utility to provide electricity audits. There's lots of different outlets for you. And then tracking. So we use what we call key performance indicators, or KPIs. These KPIs are looking at a number of things. I don't think you can read that on the screen, but we look at the KPI sheet at safety or accidents and incidents. We look at quality. We look at micro. We look at efficiencies on our bottling lines, efficiencies in our brew house. And then there's a whole separate sustainability section. And that's where we look at electricity and water, recycling, natural gas, and I'm going to go more into those in a little bit and show you exactly how we track that. Management looks at these key performance indicators on a monthly basis. They discuss them. They ask, well, what happened this month, or why was this high, or why was this low, or what's going on? So they do pay a lot of attention to all of these KPIs. The KPIs are also publicly displayed for all of our employees. We have 3 touch screens located throughout the brewery that employees can go and look at. There's an overall screen, which is this right here, but at the bottom they can scroll through and find their specific department, and they can look at their specific department KPIs. It's totally accessible, totally transparent, and available all the time for employees should they care to visit it. That's a different topic. So this is just one example of tracking, and I'm going to talk more about electricity, but this is our kilowatt hour consumed per barrel of beer produced, and I should just preface this by saying This includes our entire campus, our entire Sierra Nevada operation, which is not just brewing. It includes a restaurant, a concert venue, wastewater treatment. We do all the maintenance on our vehicles, so we have 4 mechanics on site with big shops. It includes a lot more than just the brew house. But having these types of tracking metrics, and again, we're doing it per barrel of beer produced. So this is a production-driven metric. We can set goals. We can look at, well, why are we so high in the summer? What happens in February, or what's going on? We can look for different trends and try and pinpoint what's going on at the facility. You do not have to get this complicated. Okay? You can do simple tracking. This is my tracking that I do at my house. Every month I come home with a report card for the husband. Here's how we did. I'm tracking electricity. This is our water. If we were not, or if I was not, he loves it, by the way. I like to think he does anyway. So if I weren't graphing this and if I weren't looking at it, I would have never realized those big spikes up there. You see those? Guess what happened there? Left the sprinklers on overnight. Just forgot, went to sleep. By looking at that, we realized, holy cow, we need to do something. Let's put some timers on our sprinklers and have those shut off after a designated period of time. Tracking can be this simple, okay? This is just an Excel spreadsheet. I look at the invoice every month, I put our usage in the invoice, and we can see these kinds of trends and see seasonality or, crazy weirdness like that. So I really encourage you guys to do this, no matter what scale you're working on. It could be big scale or even just small scale for your home. It does make a difference, it really does. So education. We work to educate our employees on a number of different levels. And the one thing I've learned with working with our employees is that you have to use a lot of different tacks. Not everybody learns the same way. Not everybody's going to respond the same way. So you have to come at it from every angle that you can possibly think of. In our new employee orientation, I spend an hour with all new employees going over our general sustainability philosophy, what we do, and then how they're expected to participate and contribute. We have bulletin boards. We have a monthly newsletter that I can put postings in. Mandy, my assistant, and I attend department meetings. We have a lot of one-on-one conversations with people. As we're doing audits, people will ask questions like, what are you guys doing in the trash can? And, we'll talk to them about it and, oh, okay. So, we'll do signage with pictures. Pictures are a big thing. You kind of have to address it from a number of different levels, but we spend a lot of time on that. With our consumers is a little trickier one, which I'm going to spend some time at the end talking about that. But with our consumers, it's very grassroots communications. We tend to use the events and community involvement, the sponsorships that we participate in, the organizations that we align ourselves with. We try to do, like this was the Sea Otter Classic in California, a big 4-day bicycle event. And, we tried to partner with them and send the please recycle message, just something as simple as that. And then a lot of peer things. So I do a lot of conferences, information sharing with big organizations, which has been surprising. I've spent some time talking with Frito-Lay, Pepsi, Ocean Spray, Hershey's, big companies that it's very refreshing to me to know that these companies are actually paying attention to sustainability. They have questions about it. How did you guys do what you did? Or why are you doing this? Or how'd you get that to pay back? And things like that. So we have a lot of information sharing with other food and beverage manufacturers, which is a lot of fun. It's a mutual learning experience for us. So with that in mind, I'm going to kind of address these areas, which I feel are applicable to most businesses, most organizations. Everybody uses energy in some way, water in some way. There's usually transportation associated with most things, emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, as well as solid waste. So energy. At Sierra Nevada, we started in 2003 or 4, looking at on-site generation opportunities. How can we generate electricity on-site? There was a lot of flux in our local grid. We had a lot of outages. When the power goes out, we lose beer. Again, that's unsustainable. We can't afford to just keep losing beer because the power goes out. So how can we provide more of our electricity ourselves in a renewable and reliable way? We settled on fuel cells first. If anybody would like to talk afterwards about fuel cells, I'm happy to do that. I have a lot to say, but I will reserve that till later in case anybody's interested. But essentially, the fuel cells run on natural gas. The natural gas comes in, breaks the hydrogen away. The hydrogen produces electricity. The electricity comes into our facility. We also have the benefit, does this have a, it does. So these here, all these pipes that come off the top, those are recovery systems. That's recovering the roughly 800 degree Fahrenheit exhaust that's leaving the fuel cells. We pull that heat out of the exhaust, create clean steam with it, and then the steam gets recycled back into our facilities. That adds about 15% efficiency over just a straight fuel cell by itself. So again, looking for a discard, and then how do we bring that back in? We then went a little crazy with the solar panels. We have one of the largest privately owned solar installations in the country. We have over 10,500 individual solar panels. Every structurally sound enough roof space has been covered in panels. There's an awning off the backside. These panels are actually the panels that cover a 3-acre parking lot. These panels are actually tracking panels, so they track east-west with the sun, which adds about 30% efficiency over just stationary solar panels. Our daycare is 100% solar powered, and our rail spur is 100% solar powered. So we've kind of went overboard with the solar. The fuel cells, I think I have graphs on this, yeah. So our on-site generation is one of the metrics that we track. Unfortunately, this is one of the things that we have absolutely no control over. We cannot control whether or not the fuel cells are working. We can't control whether or not the sun is shining. We really have no control over this, but it's good to look at. The goal is set up here at 85% because in 2009, we actually did reach 84% self-generation. Since 2009, our fuel cells have slowly worked themselves into just a dying state, and they're just painfully and agonizingly dying right now. So our on-site generation continues to drop off, which is really frustrating for me because I know where we could and should be, and we're at 60% last year, and that's just like, oh, we're like 15% off where we need to be at least minimum. But when I take a step back and look at that, we're still generating 60% of the power we need to run our entire facility, which is pretty amazing for a facility our size. We then separate that out by type. So the blue bars are what the fuel cells are generating. The red, or whatever color that is to you guys right now, the red or brown is what the solar is generating. And then that green line is what we're actually consuming. So the difference between the green line and the red bar is what we're purchasing from the utility. Now we obviously want to bring that green line right on top of that bar. And as I mentioned, we can't control the fuel cells and we can't control the sunshine, but what we can do is work towards efficiency, using whatever we're generating, using that more efficiently. So we focus a lot on energy efficiency. We've installed heat recovery mechanisms on our brew kettles. We have plate heat exchangers throughout the facility. We have heat recovery on our fuel cells, as I mentioned. And then we have economizers and heat recovery on our boilers to recycle all of this heat that's lost during the brewing process, bring that back in. We've upgraded our lighting system, our equipment, we've automated things, we've got the monitoring and the tracking happening, but behaviors is the most important piece in this whole energy efficiency project. We could install a $50,000 super badass lighting control system, but if the employees are overriding it, we've just wasted $50,000. So it's really important to educate people on the pieces that you're putting in place, why you've done it, and how they are supposed to use it. If they don't know how the motion sensors work and they're just overriding it, that's an education flaw right there. They should know how those systems work. So then, again, this is the kilowatt hour consumed per barrel of beer produced. Again, this includes our entire facility, the restaurant, the concert venue, everything else that's going on at the brewery. We did meet our goal. We actually exceeded. So our goal was set at 17.5, and we finished the year with a 16.5, which was better than I anticipated, actually. So with a little more education, little more conservation, a little more awareness, I think we can continue to drive that number farther down. So speaking of closing the loop, this is our wastewater treatment facility. We have a wastewater treatment facility on site that's treating all brewery effluent water. Sanitary water goes directly to the city. Part of that brewing process includes an anaerobic digester. The anaerobic digester produces a methane-rich biogas. It's about 75% methane. Now, we were required to flare that biogas. You can't just vent methane. You have to flare it or combust it and bring it down to carbon dioxide. Instead of doing that, well, let's just recover it. Let's recover it, clean it up, compress it, and then we'll send it into the boilers in place of natural gas, or actually in our case, in conjunction with natural gas. So we're offsetting a portion of the natural gas that we would have to buy from our utility, running the boilers on that. The boilers then make the steam and the heat that go into the brewing process that then creates the water that goes to the wastewater treatment plant that we recover the biogas from. So it's a really nice closed loop system, closed loop kind of approach for us. Water is the #1 ingredient in beer. It takes a lot of water to make beer. We consume a lot of it. We actively look for ways to reduce our water consumption. In Northern California, we've had a drought for the last few years. I think last year was not an official drought year, but we've had lots of droughts over the last several years, so it's definitely in our best interest to preserve the resource that we rely on the most to make our product. We've automated systems. We have flow meters to isolate processes. The flow meters actually help us earlier detect and identify leaks in a system, or maybe a fault or a programming error in an automated system. So independent flow meters throughout the brewery. The hose bibs, that is simply taking a $2 nozzle and sticking that on the end of a hose. It's that simple. I was walking around so frequently, and either a hose was just left on the ground running full blast, water just going down the drain, we're paying for that, or somebody's standing there, they're hosing concrete down, which is another pet peeve, but hosing the concrete down, somebody comes up and they start talking, and we're very friendly and we chat and we're very laid back, but the water's running the whole time, right, as they have this 5-minute unnecessary conversation. You put a $2 hose nozzle on the end of the bib and the water stops as you have that conversation. You also can't just walk away and leave a hose running. So that's a super easy thing, and it's actually made a lot of difference just to put a nozzle on the end of a hose. But then educating our employees on where our water comes from, how we use it, how it's distributed throughout the facility, how their actions or their work processes affect our water consumption. We track water on 2 different ways. The first way is actually just looking at barrels of water purchased per barrel of beer produced. So how much water does it take to make 1 barrel of beer? We're doing, again, better than our goal. We set a goal of 5 barrels of water to 1 barrel of beer, and we made it down to 4. This does not include our restaurant. We are able to separate out our restaurant water consumption, but it does include all of our other processes on site, which actually CO2 recovery requires quite a bit of water. Believe it or not, the wastewater treatment plant requires a fair amount of water. So we've got a lot of other additives. All of our irrigation around the plant comes in there. This is one of the positive things that I actually somewhat struggle with. The red bars are the barrels of water purchased per barrel of beer produced. The blue bars are the barrels of wastewater produced per barrel of beer. And then the green bar, or the green line, is the number of barrels that we're actually producing. So this is a perfect example of economies of scale. As you grow larger and produce more beer, you're able to become more efficient in doing that. So we're using less water to make more beer. And that's just part of that economies of scale philosophy. You can get more efficient using your resources the larger you become. We do report our greenhouse gas, actually our CO2 at this point, 2011, will include all of the 6 Kyoto referenced greenhouse gases, but we started reporting voluntarily in 2006. We realized there's going to be legislation. We are going to be regulated. We better start doing this now. We better put the stake in the ground, find out what our emissions are, quantify it, get it third-party verified. So we started doing that in 2006. I broke out here, this top one here is actual barrel production from the facility, not sales. It's just what we produced in the brew house. And then the bottom is pounds of CO2 per barrel of beer produced. So we've been able to go from 33 pounds of CO2 per barrel in 2006 down to 31 in 2010. I'm still collecting 2011 data. I haven't quite finished that yet. But we are able to drive that down, and this has prepared us for the legislation that's happening in California. California has passed it, and I suspect other states will soon follow, if not some sort of federal regulation requiring businesses of a certain size to actually quantify their greenhouse gas emissions and then take steps to reduce those. One of the other really nice closed loops that we have at the plant is our CO2 recovery system. We have about 100 fermentation tanks, a little less than 100 fermentation tanks. Those are all naturally producing CO2 as part of the fermentation process. That's just a byproduct of fermentation. Instead of venting it, we recover it, we run it through a compression, and there's a cleaning system back in there. Clean it up, compress it, and then we can recycle it right back into the brewery. We went from purchasing about 3 to 4 truckloads of CO2 every week, trucked up from Sacramento 100 miles, to purchasing 3 truckloads of CO2 all year. So it's been a really cost-effective measure for us. The way that we recycle the CO2 back in, we use it to first pressurize tanks. All of these big tanks up here have to remain under a specific pressure, otherwise they will implode, which I've seen videos of, and it's actually really cool. I would hate to see it happen. It's very expensive to replace. So you do have to pressurize those tanks, keep them under pressure. CO2 helps to do that. We also then fill tanks or lines with CO2 after they've been cleaned. It's a really good sterilizer, helps prevent bacterial growth. And then for the beers that are not bottle conditioned, we actually use it in the filling process. So most of our beers are bottle conditioned, where they finish fermenting in the bottle and they're naturally carbonated. But some of our beers, like Summerfest, we do have to add CO2 during bottling. So transportation is one of those things that has inherent negative impacts, and we realize that. But we make a product that we want to sell. And until we come up with some magical way to get it to market on bicycles or some sort of transportation method that does not use fossil fuels, which I highly doubt since we are distributed in all 50 states, we need to work on alternative forms of transportation or encouraging essentially an infrastructure change. Which is what we tried to do with these electric vehicle charging stations. We realized that nobody was really going to invest in electric vehicles if there's nowhere to plug it in and charge it. So we agreed in 2009 to install the electric vehicle charging stations. They were not used until 2011 when Ken, the owner, bought a Leaf. So he is the only one who uses these chargers. They sat idle for 2 years, but we do have them, and it was, one of those things that I really admire about Ken is that, he realizes that somebody has to invest in this infrastructure if change is going to be made. It might be a slow change and it might take a while, but somebody has to start investing, and he did. So the chargers are free if anybody wants to drive to Chico and rent an electric car. I don't even know if you can do that, but so you can charge for free. They're available for vendors, for patrons who are just visiting the restaurant, have dinner, plug in, charge the car, whatever, or employees can use it also. Ken's the only one though. We also bought an electric, it's a diesel electric hybrid tractor trailer, or tractor truck. This truck services our accounts locally in Chico, so we act as our own distributor within Chico, and this is one of the trucks that delivers product within the city limits. It's supposed to be about 30% more fuel efficient over just a straight diesel vehicle. It's quieter. You would never know that it's a diesel unless you saw the little emblem that's like this big underneath the door handle that says hybrid. It's the only thing that distinguishes it from the other trucks. But we were the first company to actually invest in this. Walmart, and it was either Coke or Pepsi, I never remember which, were trialing these in market, but we were the first company to actually purchase one. This is one of those things that will never pay for itself. That has like a 70-year payback, 7-0. Like it's never gonna pay for itself. But Ken thought it was cool. He likes toys. But again, he realizes that somebody has to start investing in these technologies if they're going to become affordable for anybody else. We also make biodiesel. So this was another one of those things that came out of the audits. What are we getting rid of? What are we paying to have hauled away? Well, we're paying to have vegetable oil hauled away out of our restaurant. Let's keep that vegetable oil on site, run it through this processor, and get biodiesel for our trucks. So this is a 50-gallon processor. We have enough to do about one batch a week. So 50 gallons a week is obviously a drop in the bucket of our total fuel consumption, but it's 100% of a waste source, and it is a step in that direction of alternative fuels. We've also joined the EPA SmartWay program, which is something that, well, if you don't have a fleet, you can't join, but you can use preferred shippers who are SmartWay members. SmartWay is a program that allows you to score your fleet. So there's a big questionnaire, big spreadsheet of information that you have to fill in on, you know, what kind of tires you use, what kind of fenders you have, what kind of fairings you have, what kind of mud flaps, all that stuff. And it gives you a score, and then you work to reduce that score. You have to build an action plan and actually upgrade your fleet and make changes to it. So we use it for our fleet, but we also use it for our shippers. So all of the third-party shippers that we use, it's become somewhat of a tool in contract negotiations. If we have two companies that are essentially proposing the same thing, same cost, same thing, we can say, well, are you SmartWay a member? No. Oh, well, these guys are, we're going to go with them, which universities are perfectly capable of doing. Other city or government entities, you are also in positions to ask that of your suppliers and of your shippers. You know, are you SmartWay members? Have you scored your fleet? You know, just asking if they are. We also have a bike riding incentive program for employees, so we try to encourage employees to get out of their cars and onto their bicycles. We realize that it's not always a possibility for employees. A lot of employees live outside of town, 30 miles outside of town, 40 miles outside of town, but it's also not practical for our sales members either. Showing up with a bunch of POS strapped to your back is probably not going to make a good impression either. So we've set it up so employees can participate to bicycle for fun, just for exercise, recreation, or to participate to bike for errands. So instead of getting in your car to go to the grocery store, the post office, movie store, liquor store, whatever, get on your bike and make that errand instead of getting in your car. And we give away prizes every couple months. We give away a couple bikes every year, 2 bikes every May. Every May in Chico is actually a bike challenge month, and businesses compete to see which business can have the most miles racked up by their employees. And Ken Grossen, the owner, he racked up more miles than any employee in our entire facility last year, actually, and the year before. 2 years in a row, he's racked up more miles than anybody else, which is pretty impressive because he has a really grueling ride into the brewery. It's about 20 miles down on the way there, which is nice, but it's uphill, straight uphill on the way back, and he does it. He's impressive. Rail is by far our largest investment in our transportation impacts. It might have been 2009 already. 2009 or 10, we made the investment. We purchased, it's actually about 35 acres of land about 2 miles from our facility. We installed 2 miles of rail track, and then there's a transfer facility. So the rail cars come in loaded with our malt, comes primarily from Canada. It's a 2,200 mile truck trip that we're now making via rail. We can get between 3 and 4 truckloads of grain in one rail car. Multiple rail cars on one line. It's very efficient. It's very cost effective. This whole infrastructure paid for itself in 2 years. It was a really quick payback. It's really efficient. So now we're only driving it. It's actually about 1.5 miles from our facility. We drive the malt in. We also ship out finished product via intermodal rail. So we load a trailer at our facility. That then goes to the closest direct rail line, which unfortunately is in Stockton, about 150 miles or so from our facility. All the trailers get driven there. The whole trailer gets put on the train, multiple trailers on the train, and then that's railed to the East Coast rather than driving it. These numbers I got from BNSF for our 2010 shipments. I haven't gotten 2011 yet, but essentially we had a 49% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by using intermodal via over-the-road travel. I was told actually that our rail system, our rail development, the line of tracks that we put in, was the first new rail development in Northern California in like 50 years, which is really sad because it is such an efficient way to move materials and goods, but we're kind of moving backwards and moving away from the rail system when we should be embracing it and really utilizing it. Resource recovery is kind of where I get a little geeky. Recycling is where my initial career began, and this is still kind of my passion. I catch a lot of flack from a lot of people, my coworkers, my peers, my parents, my family. You know, recycling is just one of those things that whatever, it's a feel-good thing, you know, we're saving the planet. It goes so much farther beyond that, and there are some really significant benefits to recycling, and it's so easy to do if you just spend the time to actually build a program. So in 2011, we diverted about 40,000 tons of material from landfill through reuse, recycling, and composting. We diverted 99.7% of the total solid waste that our entire facility generated. Our whole facility, 99.7% was reused, recycled, or composted. Now there's the obvious environmental benefit of keeping those materials in natural production cycles, so keeping that cardboard and fiberboard in production loops. We don't have to mine as much raw ingredients. We don't have to log as many trees or mine as much ash or bauxite or any of the ores that go into metals. But there's significant greenhouse gas reductions from recycling. The EPA WARM model is available for anybody who wants to use it. You just go on the US EPA website and you can probably just search for WARM. But the WARM model allows you to input what you've recycled. You know, you input what it was, what kind of poundage or volume you generated, recycled, composted, how much you landfilled, and then it'll give you a measurement of how much greenhouse gas emissions you avoided by recycling or composting that volume of material. We avoided 13,000 metric tons of carbon equivalents simply by recycling and composting that 40,000 tons of material. Our CO2 emissions was only 11,000 tons for all Sierra Nevada owned and operated equipment and processes. We were essentially carbon negative simply by recycling and composting. Now in California, that's going to be really big as we become regulated. We can use this recycling and composting program to prove that we're making some significant reductions in our carbon footprint. But wasting is expensive. It costs a lot of money to send stuff to the trash. Missoula is fairly rural, just like Chico is. Landfill tip fees are pretty cheap. It's like $31 in Chico per ton that you throw away. But you have to pay the waste hauler to get it there. You have to pay for the bins. You have to pay fuel charges, environmental charges. It ends up being $135-ish a ton. We avoided, did not write checks for, did not spend $5 million simply by recovering that 40,000 tons of material. If we would have said, forget it, send it to landfill, I don't want to deal with it, sort it, touch it, look at it, think about it, smell it, just get it out of here, we would have spent $5 million. Not only did we avoid $5 million, but because we segregated, separated, brokered, and sold materials, we brought in $860,000 in revenue. I have paid for my salary for the rest of my tenure at Sierra Nevada with 1 year's worth of recycling and composting. There are huge benefits to be had from recycling and composting, and I think it's often swept under the rug simply because it's not sexy. It's trash. Nobody wants to think about it. It's kind of the bottom of the barrel. Solar panels are sexy. Trash and recycling, not sexy. But it's so easy to do, and there are some really significant benefits to doing it. So we track the percent of resources recovered. You're looking actually at a 1-point spread here, which I know is totally against the rules for any math majors in here, I apologize. But it's hard to tell what's going on if you don't zoom in that closely. And it is really difficult to get people excited about 1/10%. It really, really is. But we are getting better every year. We set the goal of 99.7, and we actually finished the year, sorry I don't have an updated graph, we finished the year with a 99.73% diversion rate, which was pretty spectacular for our facility. I was pretty excited about that one. Reuse should always be preferable over recycling or composting. We reuse tons of material within the brewery. Pallets are the obvious one, but burlap is given to landscapers or beekeepers. I actually didn't know this until I started working at the brewery, but beekeepers they burn that burlap, and the burlap smoke is what they use to herd the bees. I had no idea. Super sacks, packaging materials, paper, making notepads or printing on double-sided, all different kinds of things. We actually started an internal Craigslist, which has been really popular. I've been surprised at how popular it's been. I started it to get rid of brewery-generated stuff. So we get a lot of things that, one department is getting rid of, or, we've got this thing that we want to get rid of, and maybe somebody could use it at home. Plastic pallets are one that we get rid of a lot. On the rail cars that we get in, there's a big plastic sheet that's on top of every rail car. Actually, not every rail car from one specific carrier. And the sheet's it's 3-4 feet wide by 50 feet long. Perfect tarp, slip and slide, rain cover. You should see the pictures, they're pretty good. But we can post things like that internally, and employees have really good uses for a lot of these materials. So reuse is something that we definitely stress at the brewery. We recycle our spent brewer's grain and yeast for cattle feed. Luckily, where we're at, there are a ton of dairies and cattle lots surrounding us, so the material never really gets farther than about 20 to 35 miles from our facility. Then we collect and recycle pretty much everything else you can think of: cardboard, glass, shrink wrap, plastic strapping, paper, compost, scrap metal, computers, pretty much you name it, and we have a collection for it. We've tried to set up our break rooms to be zero waste, and I've actually partnered with our health and wellness coordinator, and this has been a pretty fun endeavor to work with her on this. So we've set up our break rooms so that people can bring food from home. They can bring leftovers, or they can bring raw meals and prepare them. Every break room has a refrigerator, a microwave, a sink, dish racks. There's also a whole bunch of reusable dishes that employees can use. Some break rooms, there's 2 break rooms that have stoves, so people can actually cook food there if they'd like. By bringing fresh food to eat, whether it's leftovers or freshly prepared foods, they're probably eating healthier. All of the pre-packaged frozen dinners, frozen burritos, all of this pre-packaged stuff that employees were bringing, not only is it probably not the best thing that you should be eating, it produces a lot of trash. A lot of trash that's not recyclable. So we try to encourage people to bring their own food from home, use the sink, wash your Tupperware, take it home clean, you don't have to think about it. And then we also have recycling and composting collections in all of our break rooms. So composting. Tried to work with the city, the county, and all the waste haulers to get a regional composting facility for specifically the organics from our restaurant, but also some material from our brewing process, as well as all of our break room food scraps. After 4 years of struggling with those guys, we said, fine, you know what, we're just gonna buy our own composter, we're gonna install it, and it's gonna be great. And it is, most of the time. So we collect all of the food scraps from the restaurant, plate scrapings, prep food, meat, dairy, oils, everything. We collect everything from break rooms, coffee grounds. I had no idea how much coffee our employees drank until we started collecting the coffee grounds. It's obscene. I'm surprised they are not bouncing off walls. Coffee grounds. And then we collect the spent hops from our dry hopping process, as well as some of the grain that ends up flushed down the drain and ends up at our wastewater treatment facility, gets screened out, and then some of our filter pads make it into the system. Collect it and send it into the hot rot. The hot rot is, so to kind of put this in size perspective, from the bottom of the system up to the top there, the top of that green lid, is 8 feet. Okay, the length of the system from front to back is about 53 feet. So it's a really big, supersized composting system, which is pretty fantastic. So we put all of this grossness in the machine, meat, dairy. We had an Oktoberfest party, 12 pig carcasses went through the machine. I mean, everything. So people not to get on my bad side, because now I know that we can actually compost that kind of thing. 2 weeks later, we get a really nice, stable compost. So after 2 weeks in the machine, it's completely automated. It's a very aerobic system. 2 weeks, we get a nice finished compost coming out of the system. That compost then goes on our 2-acre organic estate garden for the restaurant. We're growing produce and herbs for the restaurant. We also have an 8-acre organic hop field and a 30-acre organic barley field that we can use the compost on. So we have a use for this finished material. The garden is producing the food that goes into the restaurant, which makes the scraps that go through the hot rot back onto the field. So it's a really nice closed loop system for us. Unfortunately, the hot rot is not one of those things that is going to immediately pay for itself. That's about a 16-year payback. But again, one of the things I love about working for Ken is that, you know, he likes technology. He understands that we have to keep organics out of the landfill. Without success with our city and community, he's willing to just do it himself, which is pretty impressive. So addressing human resources and our community, we have tons of programs for our employees. Our perks are, I have to tell you, absolutely unbelievable. We have an on-site daycare. We have an on-site healthcare clinic with a physician on staff now. It's available free and anonymous to all employees, full-time, part-time, and their families. I've taken my sister there. You know, she had strep and just needed a little prescription. Parents can take their kids there if they need just, you know, a physical for the sports team and you don't want to pay a copay. Just pop in real quick, get the physical. You know, it's really handy. It's on site. We have an employee garden area to allow employees to garden on site if they, you know, don't have space at home and they live in an apartment, or they can't garden, it's too shady, or like me, I don't want my pumpkins and squash taking over my entire yard, so I garden my viney and crawly things out there. We really try and give back to our community as well. So we have a lot of community support drives. We have a lot of benefit events at the brewery. We give a lot of monetary donations to a lot of our nonprofits locally. Employees actually get really excited about giving back to the community, and it's a fun thing for employees, and they really enjoy it. So some of the advantages that I found to having a sustainability program, there's obviously, we get some environmental stability out of it. But then there's the cost savings, saving on your utility bills, saving on, you know, procurement or different things. The marketing and PR, consumers tend to really like hearing what we're doing. They feel better about buying our products after they understand, you know, all of the effort that goes into it behind the scenes. But employee happiness, recruitment has been huge, and retention. I've had so many employees over the last 5 years come and tell me that they are so happy to work for a company that has these ethics and that gives back in the way that they do, and that really invests in the things that we do. I've also had a handful of employees over the last few years come and tell me, you know, the only reason I took this job offer with Sierra Nevada was because of your environmental reputation, or because of your sustainability program. You know, I wanted to work for a company like that. So if you're considering going into this field or a position like this, I recommend that you have a really strong understanding of environmental systems and how human actions impact those systems. It would also be extremely advantageous to you if you can work out cost-effective solutions to reduce those impacts. If you can do that, you are golden. And it's really hard to do, believe me. But I would also really like to stress that sustainability can and should be integrated into any position in any field. Whether you are an architect, a fashion designer, a brewer, or a politician, sustainability should be at the forefront of your mind. You should be considering the environmental, the social, and the economic implications of your actions, using a zero waste mindset and all of that. So with that, I will open it up to questions. Yes?
Yeah, you had mentioned that some of your fuel cells are losing their efficiency.
Yeah.
Are there any current plans to fix that?
Yeah. So we are under contract with our current fuel cell system until May of 2015. So we contractually have them for another 3 years, and Fuel Cell Energy is required to maintain them. We have been in discussions and negotiations for, gosh, almost a year now to actually upgrade our system and use a newer system. Fuel Cell Energy has improved their technology dramatically. We actually have the oldest operating fuel cell energy system there is. So Fuel Cell Energy has learned a lot from our installation, specifically what not to do, and they've taken that and they've improved their technology, which is good. The problem right now is our utility. They have hurdle after hurdle after hurdle, and at this point it's really not looking feasible to actually replace the system or upgrade the system. So as much as we would like to, I don't know that that's actually going to happen.
What's the solution to that?
To the fuel cells?
Yeah.
We don't know yet. I actually just got the call like 2 weeks ago that they can't meet the requirements that we wanted. So we still need to have those conversations. I need to have those conversations with Ken, and you know, if the fuel cells are removed in 3 years, what are we going to do? Are we going to replace them with something, or invest in more solar, or you know, what should we be doing? So those are conversations that we haven't yet had, and don't really know what the answer is yet. I would like their utility to just stop being ridiculous, ideally. Yeah.
Other than the fuel cells problem, do you guys have any other projects that you're working on right now?
Oh yeah, you should see my project list. It's ridiculous. So most of the projects that have been on my table have kind of been put on hold. We actually just announced about a month ago that we will be building a new facility. So a lot of energy and attention is being put into the new facility. So a lot of projects for a lot of people have been put on hold, or you know, postponed, or you know, we're still trying to work out exactly what's going to happen and who's going to do what and where are we going to go from here. So a lot of that's on hold.
When you guys are building a new facility, how are you trying to keep that sustainable?
We're going to take everything that we did in Chico and make it better. So, I mean, it will definitely be part of the design, and it will be, you know, at the forefront of everything that we're doing. So we've had a lot of time to learn, which is nice. Yeah.
So is Ken's son going to be taking over the new one? or who's going to be in charge of that?
It will be co-managed by his son and our current transportation and logistics manager. So they will be co-building and managing that facility out there in North Carolina.
Sorry, what was the transportation manager's name?
Oh, his name is Stan Cooper. Yeah.
What kind of processes or like discussions does Sierra Nevada go through to balance like return on investment and payback with like all these great investments that you guys have made so far?
That's the beauty about working for Ken, is that everything is case by case. So there is no strict, you have to meet this payback. You know, he can look at a project and might not be a comfortable payback, but if the other benefits are there, he'll go for it. The solar panels, the majority of the system, 75% of the system was at a about 6 or 7 year payback. The rest of the system was the more traditional 14-year payback, and that was because of limited rebates. The rebate was kind of cut off at a certain size limit, and we maxed that out. The fuel cells were about 6-year payback. The biodiesel was like 16-month payback. The rail spur, wastewater, CO2, those were all within 3-year payback. The composter, that's like 16. But hopefully it's around forever. I don't know. Yeah.
In light of these kind of like upfront cost-heavy projects, did you feel at any time you were taking a like significant financial risk for the company?
Not with the projects that we've done so far. There have certainly and absolutely been projects that have been a little risky. None of them were specifically sustainability focused or oriented. You know, they obviously had impacts on our sustainability program. But yeah, there's absolutely been periods of, should we be doing this? I don't know. Let's just go and see what happens. Yeah.
Are there any government incentives for all the technology you implement?
Absolutely, and without those incentives, we probably wouldn't have done half of what we've done. The energy specific ones, you know, those incentives are huge, and without those incentives, we wouldn't have or been able to install what we did. There's a lot through our local utilities, the water utility and the electricity and natural gas utility. They provide a lot of incentives and assistance, actually, in deciding which things are, you know, feasible to put in. On a federal level, there's investment tax credits which are available, and those are helpful in some situations, not so much in others. Yeah.
Just with the intersection between kind of public policy and sustainability, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the outreach you do with elected officials or lobbying work that you do to advance sort of the larger sustainability goals.
In the City of Chico specifically, there is a City of Chico Sustainability Task Force that was established 3 or 4 years ago, sometime maybe 4 years ago, and each council member, each city council member picked a person to be part of that council. Ken was chosen to be part of that council, so he goes to monthly meetings with the city. He's very active in driving the sustainability agenda with the city and our local government. So he's very active in those discussions, and I expect that we will be just as active in North Carolina as well. Yeah.
So how many employees do you have? And obviously you got a top-down thing as far as Ken being the final word on everything, but within departments, are you working toward the social equity thing? Is that horizontal decision-making? Do the employees have a voice?
Absolutely. So as a company, we've got about 515-ish employees. Roughly 100 of those are sales reps spread out around the country. About 125 of those employees work in the restaurant alone. The rest of the employees are production, offices, transportation, sanitation, maintenance, random people like me. There is a lot of employee engagement and a lot of employee input, and I specifically rely on that employee input. So I spend a lot of time just walking around the plant, talking to people. People feel very comfortable coming to our office and giving us suggestions. We do have kind of an informal suggestion process where employees, if they spot something in their workspace that they think could be improved and they don't have the ability to improve it themselves, they can leave those suggestions recommendations, and we absolutely act on as many as we possibly can. So there is a really good dialogue both from top down and bottom up, and there is a lot of communication across the levels, especially when it comes to sustainability. Yeah.
You had talked about reusing your CO2 that's produced during the brewing process and through the whole process at your facility. How long can that be stored? And after it's been reused and put back in the system, what happens to it then? Is it restored again? Or, yeah, is it reused again and again and again?
A lot of times it's actually vented, because most of what we do is pressurizing the tanks, especially during packaging and filling. So as tanks are filled and emptied, there's constantly CO2 being added or vented to keep that pressure right. So a lot of it, once it's recovered from fermentation, if it's not leaving the facility in the bottle, it's somehow vented during that pressurizing of tanks. So we essentially kind of get one reuse out of it, but we're not purchasing it and trucking it up from Sacramento. Yeah.
Do you have a specific date when you'll be opening the East Coast facility?
Nope. 2 years was the estimate that we've all been told. Exactly when, nobody knows. Moving target. Yeah.
What do you hope to have achieved through this presentation here in Missoula? And where are you going next after this?
That is a great question. I'm going skiing on Saturday, and then I'm going home. What do I hope to achieve? Actually, well, first I really just wanted to kind of share what we do. I would love to get input and feedback from other people on what they do, and maybe some ideas that I could take back to the brewery. But the main reason is just to share what we have done and let other businesses or organizations really understand that you can have this sort of ethic and mindset and still be a successful business. You can have a strong sustainability program and still turn a profit. Which I think a lot of businesses are afraid of, and I think a lot of businesses, and the businesses that I talk to anyway, they just don't know where to start, and it's very overwhelming, and oh my God, how do I do this? Or who do I get help from? What am I supposed to do? And really nobody knows what we're supposed to be doing. You just take it one step at a time. Every little tiny bit helps. So I would hope that people leave here feeling less overwhelmed by the tasks at hand and really realizing that their small efforts do add up to a bigger and greater cause. Yeah.
How many other companies do you guys work with that are still sustainable?
Lots.
Really?
Yeah, and you know what? So something that I've really been discovering from the large businesses that we work with, the huge corporations that you would expect, these guys really, are they really sustainable, or are they doing anything to address this? They really are. And they're actually a lot better than small businesses. They just don't talk about it. They do a lot of these things, and they have been doing these things for years. It's not part of their normal thought process to actually equate it to a sustainability program. From the small businesses that I talk to, and a lot of the small businesses that I work with, they don't give themselves enough credit. Most of the small businesses out there are really doing some great things, and they have the foundations for a fantastic program. They just don't give themselves enough credit for it. They look at, people even like us or bigger companies, and they're like, oh God, we're not even on the same level, but yeah, they are. So there's across industries and across sizes and sectors, a lot of people are doing some really amazing things, and it's exciting, to kind of foster this innovation. And who's going to come up with the next super brilliant idea that everybody else is going to kick themselves for not thinking of sooner. And that's both big companies and small ones.
Let's take one more question.
Okay, sorry, one more. Yeah.
I know you guys have a large merchandise line. Where does a lot of your merchandise come from? Are these sustainable companies that you buy from?
Like our wearables and stuff?
Yeah, are they sustainable companies that you buy from? Do they have any? Are they socially responsible companies as well? Environmentally sustainable companies?
Yeah, the woman who does the purchasing for all of our merchandise and decides what we sell in our store, she is fantastic, and she has done a great job of researching companies. She has kind of an informal checklist of, where is the product made? Is it a U.S. made product? If it's not U.S., where is it made? What is it made from? Is it recycled content? Like this fleece, for example, is recycled PET. We have recycled cork coasters and, all kinds of different recycled content things. But they also really look at durability. And is this a product that's going to be durable, that somebody can wear or use or enjoy for a long period of time and not have to throw away within 6 months because it fell apart? So she looks at a lot of different things, and she really does a great job on weighing all of those different aspects. And there are a lot of, like our clean canteens, they're made in China. Our Chico bags made in China. This was actually made in Paradise, just not far from Chico. But a lot of things, you kind of have to go, well, it's made in China, but is there an American-made product that has the same durability, the same, sustainability parts of it? If not, then you kind of have to go overseas. So she does a good job of that. Am I done? Yeah. Do you have a cane? Okay. Well, thanks for coming, you guys.